Hi, I'm Sarah Green. I'm here today with Robert Steven Kaplan, Harvard Business School professor and author of What You're Really Meant to Do. Rob, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So the book is about finding success on your own terms. And for a lot of us, that means doing what we're passionate about. But in some quarters, you mentioned passion, and people get skeptical. Why is passion something that's so important to our career?
The reason you should take it seriously is if you're going to reach your potential, I mean be as effective and successful as you can be, my belief is you're going to do better if you're doing something that you love or you're excited about. And just think of it in your daily lives. You do better at things you're interested in. And the reason for that is over a career you have to work on strengths and weaknesses. You have to get coaching. You have to do all sorts of things that are difficult, trying. Maybe the industry you're in is going through a downturn. What pulls you through? Passion is the fuel that pulls you through those difficult periods. If you don't really love what you're doing and you've got to go through all the ups and downs of a career, you might not make it. But the reason other people do make it and reach new heights is they like what they're doing. And so that's why it's so important. It's not an accident or it's not incidental to success. It's a critical element of reaching your potential.
So let's talk then about how you identify your passion, because that's something that you'd think might be obvious, but I actually think it's pretty tough. So what do people do? How do they really do that?
So I work with people trying to figure out their strengths and weaknesses, their passion, and a lot of other elements of leadership. But I try lots of different ways to get people to focus on what they love. And there's two elements. What tasks do you like to do? And is there a mission, a purpose that gets you excited? And I try little exercises. Think about when you were at your best in your life. What were you doing? What tasks were you performing? A lot of people haven't thought about a period where they really were at their best and happy. They haven't thought about it for years. I want to get them to do that. Think about what you would do if you had an unlimited amount of money. Think about what you would do if you only had a certain number of years to live. But I find most people down deep know what those things are, but their brain or their peers or peer pressure force them to say, I don't want to say it, it sounds stupid. And I want to get them to at least be aware of it.
Let's talk a little bit now about strengths and weaknesses, because you've mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah.
How do you go about identifying those objectively and honestly?
Well, figuring out your strengths and weaknesses is a lifelong pursuit. And the problem with it, and the reason all of us, believe me, are lousy at it, is you can't do it by yourself, because we all have blind spots. So I could write down on a piece of paper, or try to, my strengths and weaknesses. The problem is it accurate? So this is why you have to seek people out who observe you and get their feedback. Because invariably, all of us have blind spots where we're not doing things as well as we might, and we do other things much better than we give ourselves credit for. And people say, boy, you're really great. How often does it happen to you? You're really great at X, such and such. And you think, wow, maybe I am. I had never thought about that. And you reorient how you think about your strengths and weaknesses.
Let's talk about one of the more interesting exercises like that in the book that really caught me by surprise, which is writing your career narrative. What is that exercise, and why do people find it useful?
Well, for starters, I suggest you look backward, which is write down the facts of your life story. Okay, the past. Then the second part is all of us have in our heads a spin on that story, either the big success narrative, which is what we're used to telling in job interviews and when you're introducing yourself. But then there's a failure narrative, which is, I'm not good enough. I may look great, but let me tell you, I've got the following problems, or I can't do something, or I doubt myself. I'm trying to get people to be aware of how their story and their narratives in their head are impacting their actions. I say you need to go out and get coaching on your strengths and weaknesses. Why can't you do it? I can't do that. I just can't do that. Why? Because I hate criticism. I just can't, or I feel awkward. Why? Well, probably because somewhere in your life you had a bad experience, or something about your life experience told you that was unpleasant. You got to be aware of it and then try not to be a prisoner of it. So I try to help people to understand, why are you so hesitant to do certain things? And reaching your potential is about understanding your story. Once we get further along, then you can write a story about your future, which is a good exercise also, because it forces you to think through maybe what you love and how you see yourself, and spot opportunities when they come up. But for starters, most of us do not understand our past or the narratives, particularly the negative ones that are in our heads. But you've got to understand yourself to reach your potential.
Well, Rob, it's a great book with lots of useful advice. Thanks very much for talking with us today.
Thank you, Sarah.